From questioning his chances of ever making it to the NBA to defying the odds and becoming a key player in the Dallas Mavericks squad, Josh Green has come a pretty long way, and now he's living the life of his dreams. Just think about it. 9 years ago, aged 14, Josh Green made a big decision that would completely change his life. He decided to leave Australia behind, along with all his friends and school, for the greener pastures of the U.S. in search of his very own American dream. He was excited about the new challenge, but doubt crept in when all he could see from the plane window was Phoenix's dry desert. But even before making the move to America, Green had already encountered some massive crossroads at his young age, which I guess is something that you have to do when you're as talented as Josh is. Like, he played every single sport during his time in Australia, from tennis to soccer and obviously basketball. But you'd be kind of surprised to find out b-ball wasn't always the plan. In fact, young Josh Green loved playing Australian football more than basketball, especially because it seemed like the best route to making it to professional sports. And it was definitely a better prospect than basketball in his homeland. But then his father got a great job offer in Phoenix. The Green family relocated to America, and Green had to make or break with basketball instead. But see, the move to the U.S. was a massive reality check. Green realized immediately after reaching Arizona that everything was different here. It wasn't exactly the America he dreamt about, and even the style of basketball was very different from the way the Australians played it.
Just continue to run in transition, running as hard as I can, because, either I'm going to get the ball or I'm going to create something. Other teams know I like to run, so, run, draw players, and it creates either me to get open or somebody else to get open.
Green picked up the difference while watching his older brother play AAU games in Phoenix. He learned how his brother played differently, passing more, utilizing sharp cuts, and employing defensive principles. The fundamentals of basketball from down under, basically. Green noticed that other players on the court were on a solo mission to get as many points as possible, while he would go on to clarify that American basketball isn't selfish basketball. He did say that it was still very different, and he was lucky to be young enough to make the adjustment, which is honestly an understatement given how quickly Green rose through the ranks. Like, just look at how he went from being an unranked prospect to becoming a top 10 recruit in just a few years. Green's rise to teenage stardom is, simply put, insane. And by the time he moved across the country to Florida, he'd made a huge impression in Phoenix, and by the end of his senior year, the Australian was a McDonald's All-American and a national champ. All this hype was extremely well received in Australia, where they heralded him as the next big star. Just like that, Green had already realized his dream, winning big in America as a teenager.
The season's done, so it was a lot of high hopes to and then when we were told that COVID was going to ruin it, I didn't really know what to think of it. It took me a week or so to be able to just think it through.
But little did he know, it was about to get even better. The NBA was just looming over the horizon, and it was from a fellow Australian star, Ben Simmons, who reached out to Green on Instagram. The two would meet for dinner after the 76ers were in Miami, and since then, the pair have remained close friends. For Green, though, it was another dream coming true, as he'd suddenly become buddies with someone he'd looked up to since he was a kid, and that person was actually helping Green adjust to American life. Like, how big a coincidence is that? It's like handing a pen and paper to a teenager and telling them to write their own story the way they'd like it to be.
I shouldn't be passing up open threes. I feel comfortable shooting them, and it's not so much, counting the makes. Obviously, yeah, you want to make it every time, but it's more of making sure that I'm taking the right shots.
Because how else do you explain the way Green's career took off during his college years? Sure, he was by no means a LeBron James or a Zion Williamson, but in his own way, Green was super special during his college years. As a shooting guard, he was averaging 12 points and nearly 5 rebounds, along with 2.6 assists per game. All this in his freshman season. And that was enough for NBA franchises to send scouts to see this phenom in Arizona. And it didn't take long for Green to decide that enough was enough and that he was ready to take the next big step of his career, which was declaring for the NBA draft. Whatever disappointment he may have felt about not getting picked in the top 15 at the very least was immediately gone when Green was selected as the 18th overall pick by the Dallas Mavericks.
I shouldn't be passing up open threes. I feel comfortable shooting them, and it's not so much, counting the makes. Obviously, yeah, you want to make it every time, but it's more of making sure that I'm taking the right shots.
The Mavs loved his athleticism and the potential he possessed as a 3-and-D player, and given his confidence, it was a no-brainer decision by the Dallas side to bring him in immediately and stick him in the rotation. And since then, Green's pretty much been living the dream. A lot of people overlook the hardships of having to leave your comfort zone behind, but not me. I appreciate what Green did, and thankfully, he's not gone down the route of his idol Ben Simmons. I mean, he could easily just be happy with getting to the NBA and believing that he'd made it and that he doesn't need to work on anything else. But Green isn't like Simmons in that regard. He's only improved every year of his career since joining the Mavericks. In his first year, Green racked up 39 appearances, averaging just a shade under 12 minutes for the Mavericks, but he was scoring only 2.6 points per game. The Mavs, though, were patient and they knew the potential was there, so they gave him a G League assignment during his rookie campaign. Jason Kidd also put a lot of faith in the youngster and rewarded the young Aussie with almost double the appearances and more minutes in his second year in the NBA.
We needed to be able to regroup and with the young players that we have out there in I don't want to say pressure situation, but in a challenge situation.
Again, the young star repaid the faith and showed constant improvement, scoring 5 points per game during his 67 appearances and improving his three-point shooting to 36%. But he's truly taken off this season, and it's already being labeled as his breakthrough season in Dallas. Green's been absolutely phenomenal during the ongoing tumultuous season the Mavericks have experienced. Of course, he's still a work in progress and has a long way to go before he realizes his true potential, but thanks to his upbringing in Australia, the star still possesses a decent ball-hawking defense, nifty passing, and razor-sharp off-ball cuts. Athleticism is another ace up his sleeve, and Green has been bringing that side of him to the NBA as well.
I shouldn't be passing up open threes. I feel comfortable shooting them, and it's not so much, counting the makes. Obviously, yeah, you want to make it every time, but it's more of making sure that I'm taking the right shots.
The NBA world has already seen how he ambushes opponents and chases them down, while also exploding to the basket for some sensational high-flying slams. But that's hardly his best trait. Green's being developed into a three-point shooter, and this season he's been shooting at 42% from beyond the arc. And given the Mavs' style of play, it just shows why they were reluctant to include him in a deal for Kyrie Irving. After all, he's the perfect fit for what the team needs, and that has earned him the nickname of Mr. Electricity. Not only by his teammates, but also by Mavs play-by-play announcer Mark Followell. Thanks to his highly energetic playing style, Green has become an important rotation player for Jason Kidd's side chasing a title this season. In recent weeks, they may have fallen off the rails a bit, and Green will play a big role in the Mavs' push for a playoff spot, be it a direct one or via the play-in tournament. But whatever happens from here on until the end of the season, I can tell Josh Green's only just starting out. And folks, that's why Josh Green is living his dream career.